So the next report under the principal's report is on page 12, I believe, and that is our report on first semester attendance and student discipline. So I'd ask that Assistant Principal of Student Affairs Dave Manning come up, along with Dean of Students Neil Dugetti. I do also want to point out that based upon a request, we were able to go back in and add data from 2015 16 school year. So that's the only change that's been made to the report. But when you look at the report, you will see that additional line of data in there.
Mayor, is that on the, is that in the board packet?
Yep, it's in the board packet, it's not on that one.
It's not
It's not on that one, but it's on the board packet.
Okay. That was just, Mr. Gritchen requested it this afternoon, so we put that in the best we could.
Where is it on the board packet?
On the new board packet.
We got a new board packet?
If you were logged in online right now, you'd see it. Not the one that was sent
The
out
only
Friday.
difference is it has a line that says the 15-16 data. We have a few hard copies if anybody prefers.
You don't have, you know what, Kristen, I don't need to see it.
Let them have it, didn't you?
I just didn't.
We have extras.
Are you sure? All right.
Because it's on there.
Let's share. You guys want to share?
All right, well, good evening, board. Tonight, we're here to present the school culture report for the first semester. Within this report, we'll provide behavioral and attendance data from several categories. If you first want to look at the chart on top there, it's our student average daily attendance, and that goes back to 2012. And looking at 2012's percentage, we were at 93.25% at that point, and we had a steady increase to where we're at currently from last semester, and we rose to 95.12%, which is the highest recorded in some time here. So we're pretty excited about that, and it's contributed to a lot of people, our staff recording and being diligent with their attendance recording and reporting in their classrooms. The deans really heading this off and getting in front of it through interventions with parents, conferences with students, going out and doing home visits, roping in student services, small team meetings, things like that. And so I think we're at a point now where we're really making our strides and ultimate goal is getting students into the building, and so we're really doing a good job at that. So that's where we're at for this semester. It's 95.1, and we'll continue to hopefully keep this going here second semester. The second chart is total attendance by reason and month. And if you look at that chart, several categories on the left-hand side: average excused absences, average cut, early dismissal, and there's the other category. I put an asterisk by the other category. We're phasing that category out, and we're trying to streamline our data. What we saw previously was we're using the other category for fillers, such as like the Cubs rally when we had that, or for hospitalizations, and it wasn't really accurately telling us how many are excused, how many are cut. And so to kind of cut down on the amount of categories we used, we're going to put those in specific, those three areas, instead of just, let's put it in a blanket other category. So it gives you really accurate data going forward from those data markers. So looking at our total semester average, and these are per period per day averages, our excused absences were at 55.2 per period per day, or overall average per period per day. And that's down a little bit from last year at 57 and up slightly from 2015-16. The cuts are up from 2.3, and this has contributed to putting some of those markers from the other category into the cut category. And Neil, do you want to describe what a cut is?
So essentially it'd be someone who just doesn't come to school. Sometimes students might come in with breakfast, or essentially it could even be where a student is considered cut. The parent hasn't gotten around to calling them in yet, so then they might call them in a day or day later, then we can correct that from being a cut to an excused absence. So that's why we've kind of, as Dave said, switched it from other to cut to now excuse those two things.
Yeah, so a cut would be no valid excuse. We haven't heard from the parent into 24 hours, and that kind of would stay in that category there. So
Question.
What do you mean they came in with breakfast?
Sometimes students might come in,
This first period.
miss first period, and they come in with Dunkin' Donuts or breakfast, so they are Starbucks, and so they are not excused.
So they maybe cut that first
Yeah.
period and then showed up second or third
Right.
hour to school. And that's not cleared off or excused
Right.
by us. The early dismissal category up slightly as well. So again, we're putting some of the other data into these other categories. And so that was up slightly to 1.9 over 1 last year.
So an early dismissal, that is typically approved?
Yeah, like if they have a sporting event
Right,
or, doctor's visits, yes.
okay.
Where they would call in our attendance office, then would send a note to the classroom and then have that student come down and be excused through that procedure.
So there was a big jump in cuts in November. What do you, is there some kind of, was there an event, something you could put that on? I mean, it's just
So
kinda
like in
dramatic.
which year, 16, 17?
17, 18 this year.
So like last year, there was I think, you mean a drop compared to last year?
So there was an increase
Yeah.
here and sometimes it's where families don't give us a call, if they're not back yet from vacation or,
No, I just thought
Could
it might
be
have
a
been those 2 days before Thanksgiving or something, or whatever
Yeah.
it was,
so that's most likely what it is, that we didn't get a call from the family yet to clear that off. And so that's why the cut average was up in that month.
That month and in September, it looks like.
Yep. Any other questions on that area? Okay. Tardies, and it was same procedure here, looking at August through December. Total average per period per day is at 8.5. It's cut significantly from last year's at 16. So that's a very big success from us. It's contributed to being really consistent with our HERO program. And if you look back last year, we had a lot of construction as well, first semester. So we kind of curtailed some of the tardies, knowing that we had construction out here. So I think 16 was pretty lenient, knowing that we had a lot of construction, for kids getting to school. So a lot of things kind of we've done over the summer. We had a big push to streamline our drop-off and pick-up procedure, and I think that helped get cars in quicker, so kids get into the building faster and into their classrooms sooner. And so that, I think, we see our most tardies throughout the day, first period, students that are late. And, coming from 4 different directions into one little, one area, one street to our main entrance sometimes is difficult. So not only did we streamline that, we made 2 lanes on golf here, as well as our traffic control has been consistent out there as well. So I think that's a big victory in cutting down our tardies per period there. The 10-minute tardies below is something that we were tracking previously the last couple of years, and we went from 6.6 in 2015 to 1.92 in 16-17, and then we're phasing that out. And the reason we're phasing that out, it's a data marker that if we're only seeing 1 per period, we're not going to track that. And how we're going to kind of go forward with that is if we see consistent students that are chronically tardy to their classes. And we can track that through here because we can see a timestamp when we give the tardy to the student. Then Neil or Dave Silver are going to call them down. They're going to put them on a hallway restriction. And when that happens, if they're late to class, security's going to escort them to class to make sure that they get there. So it's not just, hey, you're going to get called down, we'll give you a consequence for it, then we'll see you later. We're actually helping them get to class, and that's the ultimate goal, is get them in their seat, get them ready to learn for the day. So that's why we're phasing that out, because it's a data marker that we saw that it really wasn't trending upward, it was going down, and that's a great thing. And we just want to make sure that we have interventions in place through our HERO system that are accurately helping students and not just providing them with consequences. So a little bit of a restorative approach there.
You had 1 or 2 questions, I think, was it on the attendance goals and initiatives, or is it on the next page?
There was one question from one of the new initiatives that we had this year. Earlier in the fall, we had students that either took public transportation, rode their bike, or walked to school, and we wanted to incentivize them a little bit, just to thank them for helping decrease the traffic congestion in the area. And so we gave away coupons, about 400 of them, and typically we're stationed outside on the various corners, and we gave students, as they got off the bus or they walked or rode their bike to school, a coupon. And then they redeemed that coupon for ice cream. We scooped ice cream for them during their lunchtime. So about 400 students in total received coupons for that. We're going to do that again in the spring. So that was wildly successful. Kids are happy and excited to receive those, and we want to reward kids for walking to school, and especially in the winter months here when it's real pretty cold out and they're getting here. So we want to continue to congratulate them.
Incenting kids for doing it, but how does that affect the attendance? Or what did change? I mean, did kids start riding bikes because they knew they'd get a
Traffic control at the drop off.
I understand that, but did we see an increase in people walking and riding because you're giving out incentives? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know because we didn't do it last year.
Okay.
So we'll know when we do it in the spring versus is there an increase or decrease. Then next year we'll have a better idea.
I will say from being in the cafeteria as they were scooping ice cream, there were kids that happened to get dropped off that morning that were disappointed, like, no, I walk every day. This is just the one day my mom drove me. And I've seen those students walking to school, so it's not, they weren't making it up, and they were disappointed that they happened to get dropped off that day and missed out on the ice cream.
I have to say, though, that, being from North Riverside, I live almost 2 miles from school. My son's never going to walk. Like,
Sure.
I wish I could get him up 45 minutes early.
We also have.
But I'm lucky he gets here on time. Well, there's a lot of parents from North Riverside who actually wish that there were some rails on the bike path because
We've talked about also
Just
rewarding
because
students
it's
for
safer.
carpooling. So if they carpool, that's another
Oh,
way
sure.
we discuss also is what
Yeah.
about those students who do carpool? And we've talked about ways to reward them as well. So we're
These
looking
are all
at that.
incentives,
That's a good
things we agreed upon in our
Yeah.
settlement agreement.
Oh, no,
Carpooling,
sure. I'm just
bike
saying
walking.
there's a small portion of kids that
We'll never
they
walk.
live,
No, yeah, I get it.
Yep.
far enough away
Yep.
that even riding a bike with a heavy backpack might not be viable.
Yep, absolutely.
Tell them to grow up. I ride my bike to downtown every day with a backpack on. So if I can do it, they can do
Harder
it.
than
Suspensions.
Okay, moving on to the suspension report.
Yeah.
The suspension
Wait, I had
report
one
that you see there,
Can you skip on?
we have different
Wait, Dave,
categories.
you had, I thought you said you only had one on attendance.
On the next that page.
Yes, one question on attendance, correct.
Right, where our first, now we're gonna go through tardies. Her,
Sorry.
the suspension.
I have a question on attendance. Have you guys thought to move the bus drop-off? Because when they do with the handicap, that bus sits there for a good 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and you can flow a lot of cars through
We've
that.
moved it 3 times.
So this has been my project for the last couple of years here.
Yeah.
We've had it at door A, and then I had a bus driver literally do a 3-point turn as I have oncoming traffic coming into the door. And then we had them out on door L on First Avenue, and then they tore up all that turf there. And so we're back to door G.
Yeah.
And then we
Because of the
worked with
drivers?
Riverside to have a selected drop-off lane, which is good. We had to change an ordinance for that to happen,
Yeah.
to clear the lane there. But I think maybe what we can do is just have a discussion. Once they drop off, they need to continue to flow out. And then a further discussion on, not going and taking a right down by Hollywood, but maybe veering off and going left because now they're trying to cut back in where all of our cars are trying to come back and drop off their students. So that's a discussion that we need to happen. So
I mean,
I'll
if we
make sure to
change the
make a
door
call.
because the bus driver violated the law, why don't you have a policeman write him a ticket? Maybe he won't do that the next time, or she, right?
Yeah.
It's illegal to make a 3-point turn.
Correct.
But
Correct.
we also tried we also tried the side by the baseball field, then we had the letters written because it was unsafe for handicap unloading on the gravel, and so we moved it back to the front. We paid extra money this year to have the front restriped, the curb to be moved. It's kind of, we're at a loss of where we can do this right
Yeah,
now.
there's just a lot of cars going into one spot at one time, so.
But the amount of time that they're sitting there is something we can definitely work on because that's a valid concern. So we'll make sure we address that.
Yeah, but some of it is because they have to. I mean, they got the lift, so they got to pull, the lift's got to go down, and so you're sitting there for 25 minutes, but the flow of cars backing up behind it or trying to.
Are they not pulling into the actual spot that?
Yeah, no, they're there, and they sit there. They're there for 20, but they got to be there for like 25 minutes. They wait for the teacher to come out to.
Oh, so is
get this to-
the stop arm out?
No.
Sometimes, yes, sometimes.
We
it's
talked
out.
about that because they said they weren't going to put the stop arm out.
Also.
But we'll address that because maybe staff needs to get out there in a little more of an
Right.
expedited fashion or or what
We
have
cleared
you.
larger amounts of space for them to pull in.
Like 100 foot, 100
Yeah,
feet.
so they didn't block traffic.
Yeah, we'll look into
We'll
it.
look into it.
Moving on to our suspension data, if you look at totals below, and then we'll break it down by categories, we're up this year. If you look at total offenses, 42, total students is 29. So we saw a couple of repeat offenders from first semester, and then our data is pretty similar to what we saw last year in several of our categories, including alcohol 3, drug possession 4. Our fight numbers are where our numbers are up at. And through doing a lot of investigations, through just talking and having intake sessions with parents after suspensions, what we're finding out is students are having discussions or disagreements online. And our Monday is the new Friday, basically. And that's spilling over on Monday without us even getting a chance to kind of assist or intervene there. And then that kind of blows up and then we have an altercation. So one thing we did in our recent grade level assembly is really promote, interventions, how we can support you in proper use of social media for our students. And that's going to be an ongoing discussion that we're going to have with our students. So that it doesn't come on Monday first thing, invoke into an altercation. So that's something we'll continue to work on. We just started a peer mediation program here. We trained about 12 students up. Our psychologist assisted with that in our special ed department as well. And now we have trained mediators, and if students accept and parents accept for their students to go through a peer mediation program, they now have the opportunity to discuss kind of concerns with peers of their own age, instead of an adult sitting next to them, which for some students is a little more comfortable for them. And it's through research and data in other schools that's been a successful program, so we're excited to get that going here, and hopefully that'll help us and be another restorative practice as well. So fights continue to curb that. I think having our safety liaison too here, we'll lean on him for a little bit of guidance in that area as well. So other than that,
So this fighting is just the same kids, because it's like 15 and 14, and I guess I'm just.
In one incident.
We're going from
Was
42 to
Yeah, one
29,
incident.
but the numbers don't add to 29, I don't think. It's just, I don't know.
So what we're seeing is maybe a student might have gotten in like a fight and then suspended for something else,
Okay.
something like that. And for the fights, I know there's a question on this. Our overall suspension days have been up a little bit, because if a student gets into a physical altercation, we're going to slow the process down a little bit. We're going to make sure we put them through a threat protocol, where while they're on suspension, they come into the office and we put them through a series of questions with our social workers, just to make sure that they're in the right frame of mind, that we don't need to do anything else for them to be successful when they come back for suspension. So we're not just suspending the student and then they come back and we didn't intervene, and then all of a sudden they're back in school without any supports. And so that's what the threat assessment protocols are for, and then also the intake for any student that is suspended. Neil and Dave meet with the parent and the student, and they put them through a whole bunch of questions. You want to talk about that a little bit, Neil?
Yeah, one of the questions was asked about what is the intake form, and essentially how is it helping? Basically what we do is Dave was talking about, is that we go through the whole process of what the student was doing when they got suspended, what they can do in the future not to get suspended again, areas where if they need a resource, who to come to, counselor, social workers, the office, and then we also have to talk about if this happens again, then what? And that's kind of important, especially as students are getting closer to the age of 18. They need to know they're adults moving forward. You just can't do certain things. Obviously, we're trying to teach them what you can and cannot do as you move into society. So we find that doing that, even if is as slow a process as it is, it's important to make sure that the student knows and the parents know, we're here to help, but we need you to make sure that you act appropriately when you're here at RB. So that's kind of the whole purpose of the intake form.
So are these all out-of-school suspensions, or are they combination of both?
So out-of-school suspensions, we do an intake form. So we call it reentry form.
But these numbers, so are they, if you had 3?
This is all out-of-school suspension.
Yeah, they're all, okay.
Out-of-school suspension, yep.
Okay.
So you had 42 occurrences where there was an out-of-school suspension issued for a total of 29 students. So obviously, some of those kids are repeat offenders.
Yeah.
Is that
Correct. Correct.
To help?
Yeah, in terms of the fighting, we did have a student who did get in 2 fights first semester. So that's why that number was off on that part. And there are, yes, repeat offenders that do get suspended, unfortunately.
So some of these suspensions could be multiple days, though? Like, let's say if a kid is suspended for the 3rd time.
Only counts as 1 offense.
Yeah, but it could be like
Yes,
the duration of
correct.
suspension could
Yep,
be.
could be longer. So if they do it a second time, we call it like
Yeah.
totality of circumstances where it increases.
Okay.
So overall, we haven't seen a big shift in overall behavior from last year. Those categories are pretty similar from what we saw this year. Again, we'll try to really get ahead of the fights and the altercations and things like that.
Just to add one thing we did at this semester with grade level assemblies is, since we did say a lot of the issues occurred over the weekend and we don't find out about it, we did promote to the students that, we do have that online bully report. You can use that as another, in which students have said, hey, there was an issue between so-and-so, that way we can grab them. First thing in the morning, we kind of scoop them up. So students do use
You can
that.
address it first thing.
Yeah.
Grab.
I use it every year. I say grab every year.
You
And
can
so-
address it first.
I do. Address it first thing in the morning.
We know what you mean.
Yeah.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
And then just to address a couple other questions that came up. Last year, what we saw, we do grade level assemblies where we bring the entire class down and we present the handbook to them. And second semester is more of just going over hot topics. What did we see from first semester? How can we address it? And for our senior class, typically they've seen it several times, and it's sometimes playing a broken record. And so we saw that for them. And we shifted our presentation a little bit. We had our English classes come down. And so we met with them in the little theater. It's a smaller venue, and it was only about 30, 25, 30 students at a clip, where we're just going over, just having discussion more than just talking over topics, having an elongated discussion. Like, what are we expecting when we close your near graduation? What's going on with prom coming up? What's my expectation and the dean's expectations for your behavior as leaders and as seniors, as you are completing your graduation date? Things like that. And they come up with some great questions for us and for us to think about too, and how we can review things in the handbook or just policies that we have second semester. So those have been really, I think, meaningful for our deans and just good information. So we'll continue to do that.
And we found that students were more likely to ask questions in a smaller venue. Like when we had the big groups, there are 2 kids who may raise their hand when there's, many kids out there have, great questions. Then we did these smaller groups, there's hands up all the time. So then we can go in a more of a smaller venue and really answer their specific question they have.
We talked about the suspension intake form. We'll do that for every suspension. And that's just to make sure that we're doing all that we can to intervene. And if there's an additional suspension for the same student with another offense, we can go through that previous paperwork and see, okay, this is what we put down on paper. Did we adhere to it? Did you adhere to it? What can we do going forward? And that's part of the SB 100 information as well. And then lastly, another new initiative that has helped increase security is the surveillance cameras on Rockefeller, and we've already utilized those over break a little bit with an accident out there. But also that's just for, we have a big TV down in our welcome center that our security will look at throughout the day. And not only there, but we also increased a couple of cameras throughout the building. So now we have the opportunity to walk a student all the way through our building. So they have eyes up, so they have all those cameras up so they can see what's going on at any time and then report out if they need assistance or if they have a student that's in an area they shouldn't be or things like that. So that's also shored up our security protocols. So, any other questions on attendance or behavior? All right.
Good job, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.